Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and we're doing our first remote broadcast for Your Need to Know. And I am delighted to welcome as my first remote guest, Allison Rusatella, and she is with Mobile Hope Loudon. She is the Director of Marketing and Community Relations. Thank you so much for joining me remotely, Allison.
Thank you so much for having me. This is also my first remote experience with this, so thank you.
Well, you are with an incredibly interesting organization. You came and gave a presentation to my Rotary Club. I'm astounded at the amount of work that you are doing right now in COVID era, but also sort of the founding story of your organization and why it is mobile. So bring us up to speed, our viewers, on how Mobile Hope came into being.
Oh, absolutely. Our founder, and she is currently the CEO, Donna Fortier, worked at Inova Loudon Hospital, where Mobile Hope was started as a project. She had heard that there were homeless youth living in Purcellville and said, I'm not sure about that. I think I need to do my due diligence. And certainly she did her due diligence and talked to the schools and talked to the people that she needed to speak with and found out there were quite a number of homeless youth, not only in Purcellville, but all over the area. So she began serving them while she was still at Inova. And then at some point, I believe 2011, Mobile Hope split off from the hospital and then we became our our independent 501c3 at that time. So what we were doing then is we were taking our bus out and providing food and vital supplies like diapers and hygiene items, clothing, things of that nature, as well as kind of helping these youth, figure out how to put the pieces back together. And that's when that's kind of, we had very humble beginnings. I think we moved maybe 8 times in the first 2 or 3 years. Yes, we were very, precariously housed ourselves. And that's kind of how it all started. Certainly, we've expanded from there. We've learned a lot, from our successes and our mistakes. I was actually on the board back then, and then recently in August stepped down to become an employee.
So you started out with a very small staff pre-COVID.
Yes.
So you had like 4 people, and now you've got like a dozen people.
Yes. So, we're a very small staff, a very lean team. When we come into work, we never really know whether we're going to be doing our jobs or we're going to be moving pallets of milk and, bags of food. But right when COVID started, the crisis started, and it was very sudden, as you all know. We realized, I think that morning we got the call from Wade, who is our public information officer. He called all of the parents and said, school will be closed today, and I think it was like for a week at that point. And it was minutes later I got the first Facebook message from a parent saying, can I come by and get food? I have no way to feed my kids today. And I went, oh my gosh, yes, come by. Here's what we'll do. So I came into work and the conversation started, and we said, we don't exactly know how we're going to do this, but we know that we are going to do this. And we're going to take our bus out to all of these neighborhoods, and we are going to provide food for these families. And that's what we did. Pre-COVID, we had about 8 stops per month into these different neighborhoods that are mostly affected by, poverty and job loss and limited English proficiency. And during COVID, we're up to 20 stops a week. So we essentially went from 8 stops a month to 80 stops a month. So as a team of 4 people, we had to kind of look at the infrastructure and say, this is not going to work, make it right. So we added many people to our team, and we were one of the few organizations that are still taking volunteers, even due to COVID. We wear masks, we socially distance, but we know our services are, extremely vital and that we just couldn't stop them.
So, so I'm sure a question that a lot of people have is, how in the world did you ramp up the amount of food, diapers, supplies? So you went from serving, I don't forget how many, but you've served over 90,000 people, I believe, since it
Yes,
started.
yes. And actually, tomorrow we anticipate hitting 100,000 family members served. So um, the community was extremely generous. We had so many neighborhood food drives that, just people were amazing. We had our lobby. I posted an Amazon wish list on Facebook, and I mean, 2 days later, our lobby was full of donations. So we had a very generous community. The food bank, the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank, provides us with a lot of food at no charge as well. Just lots of different community organizations have, stepped up. I mean, it's been amazing to see and to watch and to see this community kind of come together to provide for these families.
I mean, it's really been tough. It's been tough for everybody for sure. But when you've got resources, you can figure out a way to get the supplies that you need. But people who are already living in poverty, and a lot of people don't realize that your SNAP benefits can only be used for certain kinds of things. Like
Yeah.
even the kinds of products, food products you buy are governed by your SNAP benefits. And so things like diapers or cleaning
Mhm.
supplies or feminine hygiene supplies are not covered under SNAP benefits, even if you're getting them.
Absolutely. And all those things that you mentioned, we provide on our bus in addition to food. Um, so we, when we were kind of planning this, we thought, we're going to all these neighborhoods. How do we know we're going to be at places on time? We don't want people to wait in groups. We decided we were going to roll into these neighborhoods with our bus full of supplies and that we were going to honk the horn. And that's how we were going to let people know that we were there. So we decided to call the whole program Listen for the Honk. So, one of the most amazing things to me is, we all thought that was going to be perfect. We're just going to roll up, honk the horn, and people are going to come. But the truth is, still, when we go out, I mean, we pull up and there are hundreds of people waiting in line,
Wow.
waiting for us. I
Wow.
mean, and these are, some of these families were vulnerable prior to COVID. And as you just mentioned, it has hit those particular families extremely hard. I mean, they were already one paycheck away from a crisis, and this was the crisis. Um, so, it has been really hard on those families. And then we have countless families that, this is their first time in a food line. And it's hard for them to ask for help. You know, it's 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 been tough to see the amount of families that where they've lost their jobs and they didn't have the cushion there, the financial cushion, and the supportive relationships as well. Where they could go and ask friends or family for the help. So we're honored to serve them and to be there for them.
I think people are surprised by the fact that literally people standing in lines, and this is true for the Salvation Army over in Fairfax on Route 123, cars lined up all the way down 123 to pick up, supplies from the Salvation Army. And, this is like the breadlines of the 1930s. And I just don't believe anyone imagined, anticipated, or prepared for something that looks like the Great Depression in the 21st century. But now we have tools like the Amazon wish list. So I think there's a lot of nonprofits that are using it, and explain how that works for people who maybe have never donated that way.
Oh, absolutely. So as we run low on certain supplies, like diapers is a great one to use Amazon wish list for. We and also food. We did this a lot in the beginning. Granola bars, anything perishable. We had our wish list and we updated. And at one point I was updating it every day, and I couldn't because there was just so much generosity. I mean, it was truly, truly humbling. I mean, people would call and say, "Please update your wish list," and I'd say, "I just did 2 hours ago," and it's all purchased and sent to us. So it was amazing. And, the amount of volunteers who came to stuff the food bags, that was a whole doing a mass distribution of food like that. It's just, there's so many logistics. And, we were really thankful too to have our kids who are in crisis and housed in hotels, because they stepped up. We were like, okay, we need you,
Massive,
and
massive, right? I mean,
oh yes.
the number of volunteers, and in our second half of our show, I really want to talk about the program that you're doing with these children at risk who are precariously housed, these young adults who
Sure.
are precariously
Yes,
housed.
yes.
But I think it's remarkable that you have brought them in and put them to work straight away in this massive undertaking. How do you decide what to put in the bags? I mean, you're driving around in this truck and you're honking the horn and people are coming. How do you know what to give them?
Well, sometimes it's, just based on what's available. We actually fortified our fleet with a refrigerated truck a couple months ago, because we realized, we need to serve healthy food. This is going to be quite a while, and living off of cans, and pasta and spaghetti sauce, we need to be providing healthy food. So we got a refrigerated truck, and we try to give produce to each family. Like yesterday I was on the bus, it was potatoes, plums, apples, carrots, and cauliflower in the bag. So that was their fresh bag. Then they also got a gallon of milk, and then they also got a bag of non-perishable.
Right.
So, and that in that was macaroni, pasta, spaghetti sauce, granola bars, and cereals, things of that nature. So it's really based on what's available, but we try to, provide
I'm sure you're
things,
trying to balance it.
balance it. Yes, you got
Yeah.
it. Wonderful. Yes.
Well, it is hard. And when the crisis first happened, there were a run on certain products like toilet paper and paper towel and things that you just couldn't find in the grocery store anyway, anywhere. And you, I think we're all understanding now that this is not going to be resolved anytime soon. But when we come back from our break, I do want to talk about your housing program for the young adults aged 18 to 24 and what you're doing for them and how it's working, because it's a fascinating story. So please join us after the break as we are talking to Allison Rusatella of Mobile Hope.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He does the work of 2 jobs, but only gets paid for one. He's tough enough to feed the man that gave him a lifetime of nourishment.
He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching.
That's right. No employee of the month bonus check here. This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. Good luck finding a gym to train for that. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
What are you looking for?
Our fight against coronavirus isn't over. Let's wear face masks in public, stay 6 feet or more from others, follow state and local guidelines, and wash our hands frequently. Let's move forward together. Learn more at coronavirus.gov.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're talking with Allison Rusatella, who is the Director of Marketing and Community Relations for Mobile Hope Loudon. Thank you, Allison, so much for being here, because every day for you is a busy day. So we realize we are taking you away from the actual work that you do. I want to talk in this segment a little bit about your housing for young adults aged 18 to 24 who are precariously housed? And maybe describe for us how you determine or how you find them and how you are providing services and support services for these young adults as well.
Sure, sure. And it's just back onto our COVID, the impacts of COVID. We've seen a tremendous uptick in the amount of young people that are coming through our doors who are either completely homeless, either living in their car or a tent, or precariously housed, where they're, couch surfing, they're sleeping on a friend's sofa and have kind of worn out the welcome and now are, asked to leave. So we've seen a significant uptick in those types of kids. We get referrals from county agencies. We get a lot of residents calling, just saying, I saw this kid on the W&OD trail and he seems to be homeless. So what we will do is we'll go in pairs and, go find him. The police call us sometimes when they, have somebody that they think needs help. Lots of different nonprofits know to refer to us. The school system, we have a fantastic partnership with the school systems, and they're, always keep us in mind when, somebody in that age group. It's, that age group it's a very delicate time. And kids that age, or adults, young adults, they haven't had the time in adulthood to really cultivate those supportive relationships, people that they can turn to when, they lose their footing. And so many of these young people have had, for a variety of reasons, not good relationships with their family, or they have grown up in foster care and aged out. We see a tremendous amount of kids from foster care who just
They fall off a cliff. They fall off a cliff. I've worked with foster care youth for a long time, and after they're 18, if they don't have a program that supports them to like go to college, and there's a fortunate few who are supported to go through college, they basically fall off a cliff where they're not eligible for services because they're over 18. But as young adults, they also don't have a family support network like most of us who have adult children had as they transitioned from being a teenager to being a fully fledged adult. And housing is expensive in this area. I mean, it's expensive for families, it's expensive for young professionals, it's expensive for retirees. So if you're 18 to 24 and you have a service job that, maybe pays you a little more than to find housing that you can afford. So, how are you finding housing that you can stabilize these young people in?
Well, typically our first step is emergency shelter. The first priority is to get them off the streets where, anything can happen. So we put them in a hotel, and then they come into Mobile Hope during the day, and we help them, locate housing. Sometimes it's renting a room. It's not, always realistic for them to get their own apartment around here. They're not, they might not be skilled. So we have to kind of look at that, like, okay, let's make a short-term plan and then a long-term plan. Because ultimately our goal is to help them become self-sufficient. So we have a YES team. We have a program. It's called Youth Empowerment Services, YES team, that works with our clients to say, okay, where are we? What skills do you have? What are your interests? Are there skill deficits? Have you lost jobs? And, what are the issues? And let's try to work on those issues. It's interesting. Right before this interview, I was with one of our kids right behind this door, and he said, "I got a job." And it's
Yes.
right now. Yes,
Yes.
I mean it's it's always been hard for our population to find jobs. This is particularly hard around here because so many people are not hiring right now. So that was a real victory, because that's just kind of just as, when times are tough, it feels like a snowball. When things start going well, it's also a snowball, which is great. They get the job, they feel great about themselves, then we can kind of work on, okay, how about, what kind of housing is available for you that you can afford? And then we have some programs that kind of help them through that. Our rapid rehousing program, where, we will provide declining subsidies for utilities and rent, understanding that, these kids need to be empowered to be self-sufficient. That is, ultimately what we wish for them. So we're, really, really committed to working with them on
Well,
achieving.
rapid rehousing is something that homelessness advocates have talked about for a long time, because there's some programs that are like, well, get a job first or go through this program first, and then we'll give you housing. But housing really is core. And I believe the groups that say you can do nothing until you have a safe, secure, functional, clean place for someone to lay their head every day. And
Yes.
everything comes after housing. And that is not necessarily universally embraced, but clearly your program does that. Housing first, and then the
Yes.
support services.
Yes. And, one cannot work without the other. It's housing first. Until they have a place to lay their head, change does not happen. It just does not happen. We don't see progress forward. So, housing first. But I'm also a believer that housing in itself doesn't fix homelessness.
No.
Yes, it takes so much more.
Self-sufficiency, right? They've got to be self-sufficient. Giving them temporary housing solves a crisis.
Yes.
It is not self-sufficiency. It's
Ye-
not sustainable.
Yes. And the other thing these kids are missing is, this sense of purpose and this sense of community. I mean, when they walk through our doors, their spirits are crushed. I mean, they've forgotten how to laugh. They've forgotten how to just, just be light and just, enjoy life. I mean, they have focused solely on survival. Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Do I have clean clothes? Do I have, a winter
Yeah.
coat? Things of that nature. So there's a lot of work to be done that is, just kind of teaching them how to be again. And that's, just kind of tying this all together back to our listen for the honk, kind of involving those kids in that sense of, in that program. And this all just kind of happened organically because we really needed their help. But bringing them out on our bus and seeing them serve next to, a CEO, and next to, like, one time it was it was one of our supervisors, and it was our kid, and then a CEO, and it was like out there, everybody's equal, and we needed every one of those people. So yeah, I'll never forget. We were in Herndon, at our Herndon stop, and which is a really, we had got a lot of people there, and it was just busy, and we needed every one of those hands. And seeing that sense of community and sense of purpose was really amazing.
There have been silver linings. I was talking about that on an earlier call today, that when life hands you lemons, you learn to make lemon pie, lemonade, lemon souffle, whatever. It's, you take what you have and you use it the best that you can. But other organizations that I work with have also figured out where the silver linings are, and how this COVID period has changed how we do things going forward. Post-vaccine, I think the world has made a pivot, and we're going to see a lot of things that have changed forever. But
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit about how you have moved into Loudoun County. I mean, not Loudoun County, into Fairfax County
Yes.
from Loudoun County, and what some of your collaborative partnerships are too.
Sure. You know, this all happened. We had it kind of, discussions about that, prior to COVID, but we got so many calls from Fairfax County, and beyond, about, can we come to Mobile Hope to get these services, and that's not what we're about. We believe we need to go into those neighborhoods because transportation is a huge issue for these families. Many don't have cars. I mean, they were wondering about how they could get here on a bus, and we got calls all the way from Baltimore to
Wow.
Springfield about
Unbelievable.
people wanting us to provide services. So we got a lot of calls from teachers in Fairfax County, from Fairfax County Public Schools, saying, please, please, please. And it was really helpful because they could point us to the neighborhoods that really needed it and then help us get the word out because, with what we do, it requires a bit of trust on the client's part because, we're just rolling up in a bus. They don't know who we are. It's nice to have kind of that warm introduction. And the teachers really did that for us, as well as the faith community did that as well. Really kind of saying, okay, I have this relationship with these people and I can, broadcast it that, you all are coming. And, every time there was a line.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you point to something really important that I think all human services organizations, agencies, and nonprofits have to establish trust. There's a lot of reasons for families not to reach out to strangers or people that they're just not sure what you're about. So for your collaborative partners to bring, whether they're teachers or their faith communities, that trusting relationship they already have with people who need additional support and additional help is hugely impactful. I'm not surprised at all that you've gotten calls from everywhere because the need is so great. The need is just staggering right now. And
Yes.
so I want to encourage people who are listening to this broadcast to go to your website to find out more about Mobile Hope, to realize that you are now over the border into Fairfax from Loudon, and also to remind people that the Amazon wish list is one of the greatest ways in the world to support an organization with things specifically required.
Sure.
So, I hope that we'll check in with you later. I often like to do follow-up shows with my guests to find out where you are. And since this COVID situation has now left you with opportunities for enormous growth, it sounds like, I hope you'll come back and join us again, Allison.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. And I encourage everybody to follow our journey on our Instagram and Facebook page. We do a lot of documentation of our COVID response. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. That's been it for Your Need to Know. We're here Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. So join us next week.